The one thing is here. Something good, something bad, or maybe a little of both across the Walt Disney Company. This time around, we are focused on one particular topic, and that is the performance of Bob Iger. That's right. He returned 1 year ago, and we are going to give a bit of a progress report. Good, bad, or a little of both is what we are talking about when it comes to Bob Iger's performance in the last year. Since dethroning Bob Chapek, we remember it vividly, don't we? We all remember where we were the time we found out that Bob Chapek was ceremoniously thrown out of the Walt Disney Company, and Bob Iger, who had retired, came back to assume control. It is a tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme, and a bit of a Shakespearean type of atmosphere there at the Walt Disney Company.
Didn't Chapek get a raise a week or two before, and then he was like, yeah, you're gone, buddy?
He was doing so well, according to the board, and then in a blink of an eye, he was gone. And so we are going to be chatting with our team today about exactly how they feel he's been doing over the course of the last year now that Bob Iger has returned. But first, I want to showcase exactly what you all are thinking. We posted it to our YouTube community page and said, what sort of grade would you give Bob Iger's return as Disney CEO? So how would you grade Bob Iger's return? And here is what you had to say. 4% of you said you'd give him an A. 19% of you said you'd give him a B. 44% of you said you'd give him a C. 16% of you said D. And 17% of you said you'd give him an F. Bob Iger's first year back, this is what you, our viewers, are telling us you feel he is worthy of if you were to give him a letter grade since his return. Today, we are going to talk to the team about exactly how they feel. Certainly, publications are now starting to weigh in since Bob just passed that 1 year mark as having returned ceremoniously, saying, I came back to save the company, because he felt like he needed to be a hero in this situation, apparently, given the fact that things were going south pretty darn quick under the rule of Bob Chapek. Now, there were a number of reasons as to why things were going south at that time, certainly. However, Bob Iger stepped back in and said, I will take over until we can find the next CEO. How long do we anticipate that will be? We'll see. Tyler, when it comes to grading, when it comes to rating, when it comes to reviewing our friend Bob and his return to the CEO seat, what comes to mind? How do you think he's done over the last year?
I think I mostly agree with the audience, honestly. I think that C plus.
C's get degrees, baby. C's get degrees.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's remember, I think that like school kind of screws everybody up because it's like, whoa, C, you're not going to college with C's, boy, but it's, I don't know. Remember that's just kind of really kind of just means average. So that's kind of how I feel like he's doing. He hasn't come in and white knighted this little sad company, this tiny little mom and pop thing. He hasn't white knighted it yet.
This startup.
Yeah,
no,
but
it's the Walt Disney Company.
But also, he's still making decent moves overall. I think probably the worst thing so far, in my opinion anyway, I mean, maybe, we can probably point to a few things, but I think he really just needed to shut his mouth with all of the strike stuff that was going on, because that was really making people angry at the Disney Company in general, I feel like. And I felt like he should have learned from Chapek, like, just shut your mouth. Like,
right.
Like, you don't have to talk about this. So I don't know why he would, but that seemed like a big misstep to me. Other than that, he seems like he's kind of slowly righting the ship, but I think the people who are giving him like D and F and things like that, you guys got to remember, well, this is what I'm assuming anyway. I think that a lot of people figured that he was going to come in, Chapek was the problem, and that Iger was going to come in and with Chapek gone, whoever it was, even if just Chapek was gone, then the ship would right itself. But we're learning here that clearly, well, we've always kind of known, but this is just an illustration of it, that he wasn't the only important link here. There's other people that are also involved that are making these choices, that are making things more expensive, that are cutting back on entertainment or upkeep on certain things. it's a village. It's not just one person. So I think the people that are disappointed in Iger right now are probably the people who thought Chapek was the issue, and they're like, well, Iger's the same thing as Chapek. But I think time will tell. I think he will right the ship for the most part. Disney is such a big company, like, where there's no way it will ever dissolve. You know what I'm saying? It'll always be something. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he's doing okay. I think he's just average.
So if you were to give him a grade, you'd say?
Yeah, like a C plus. I don't know.
Okay.
C. That's why I say I agree with the audience.
That plus, brings him into 3.0 GPA range. Like, it's like a low 2.8, but it's that 3.0. You're on the honor roll.
Yeah, I don't think he's doing anything terrible so far. I think he's also not doing anything like fantastic that's blowing my mind. So.
Sure thing. Well, we also turn it back over to you. Some of the comments left when we asked you about how you would grade Bob Chapek's first year performance since returning as Disney CEO. Oh, Please says the following: Bob is failing. The streaming and film business are both in the toilet, and the parks are still profitable but trending downward, and Disney appears to not be doing much maintenance in the park these days, which could turn deadly, like back in the 90s. A poor woman was hit in the head by a freaking falling lamppost the other day. Iger is on his way out, most likely by activist investors who will take over the board and eventually the company. So that is one of those comments left by you, certainly referring to the activist investors that are indeed circling right now. If you don't know the business case, if you don't know what's going on, yes, there are individuals looking for weakness in the Walt Disney Company to potentially buy things out, to potentially come in and seize shareholder shares, to seize various elements of the organization in an attempt to buy Disney out. So it's not entirely out of the question that potentially somebody could swoop in and take this too. So there's a lot to the business case that comes along with the Walt Disney Company and Bob Iger's return. So there we have it from Oh Please. We're going to turn on over to Garrett. Garrett, I know that you are, not putting words in your mouth here, but you're an Iger fanboy. You seem to have been an Iger fanboy for a long time. His return a year ago, has it lived up to your expectations?
That's a fantastic question. I need to explain my thought process before I give an answer. So
Sure.
I am an Iger fanboy. I've watched his masterclass. I've read his book twice. I've actually met him in person in a 5-second interaction where he said good evening as he was walking down to the Boardwalk Convention Center to meet with all the other execs. I unfortunately was not able to make that meeting because of other things outside of my control, like, being a Disney cast member or being an executive. So I think comparing Iger's 1 year to his tenure where, he did 15 plus years as CEO and then numerous years before that, it's hard to compare the two because it's like comparing, a small little project to, the entirety of your career. But in the 1 year, I'm happy he's back, but it has not lived up to what my hopes and dreams were. I think he's a far better fit for the company and the image of it than Bob Chapek was. Both Bobs do have their own expertise, but I think Iger, he comes from Hollywood and entertainment, so he's able to work that angle a little bit more, while Chapek came from consumer products. And I think the creative and entertainment side of things always needs to be the focus more than what can you sell to the consumer. I am happy that he pretty much dissolved a lot of what Chapek was doing, where it was like, we have this master team that's going to create all our ideas, and then we'll send it to creative to come up with what can bring in the most money. He put, the creative teams back in a more prominent role, which is great. It hasn't really amounted to much. Disney's Wish just came out, and I saw it. It's a cute film, but it's nothing that's a knockout of the park. It's easily a C or a C- kind of grade.
That's still like a Chapek movie, basically.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, it is. In all seriousness, that they were working on that well before Iger was back.
I'm trying to think of the last sort of Iger movie to come out, but Coco, that was his Encanto maybe, but For Iger, I'd give him that C grade. I think that's fair. I don't think he was ever brought back to, revolutionize the company and make it into something greater than what it was. I think his was sort of riding the ship, just trying to get things set up nice and smooth for the most part, to bring in the successor who could potentially be Josh tomorrow, or maybe someone outside, or maybe another person we just haven't thought of. Overall, Iger has, I think, done a good enough job just to manage everything and just sort of keep it, even, not trying to, exceed expectations or lower them. He's just riding the ship. And the dude came out of retirement. I think he I think he wants retirement, but he has to hold this out for one more year to find a successor. So I'm looking forward to that. But all I can say is that, he's put his heart and soul into this company. He's done more than enough. He did not need to come back, but I think he saw that his influence and just his presence can improve cast members. It can improve, Hollywood, minus the strikes and all that. He speaks entertainment, and Disney at its core is an entertainment company. So Iger, I tip my hat to. I hope you do another masterclass, or write another book about more experiences. But I'm ready for the next chapter and who the next CEO is going to be and what they can accomplish, because I want more original ideas. I want something breaking away from what we've been doing, which is let's just do sequels and all that. But if he did promote Dave Filoni to Chief Creative Officer at Lucasfilm, then that is a knockout of the park, because Dave Filoni is what Star Wars needs. And
isn't that going to be
Star Wars,
sequels then?
What?
Isn't that going to be more sequels?
Yes,
and more
but
prequels?
But Dave Filoni was trained by George Lucas, so he speaks Star Wars. And Star Wars, you can go into the vast amount of the universe that is Star Wars, whether that's prequels or trequels.
Trequels.
Uh-oh, watch your language.
That's when you buy a lot of Christmas trees.
Yeah, but Star Wars is in a different realm as opposed to Frozen. We're gonna Frozen 3 or Frozen 4 or Moana live action. With Star Wars you can do something a little bit different. But back to Iger, I think he's done an average job. He's just trying to make sure the ship doesn't capsize, and that's all we can ask at this point in a 2-year in a 1-year time span. That's all we can hope for.
So if you were to give him a letter grade, that would be
A C.
C as well. Very good.
Yeah.
So we got a C plus and a C on board here. Next comment comes from Mitchell Rise. Mitchell says, I'd give him a C. I feel like he has prevented the company from getting worse like it was with Chapek, but I don't believe he has done much to make it better, as I feel like the company has been doing about the same as it was when he came back. So it sounds like very similar comments here, as a matter of fact.
Very astute, Mitchell. Very astute.
Very much so. Katrina, he's been back a year. Bob Iger returned as CEO. We celebrated the fact that Bob Chapek was gone because he seemed so out of touch. Do you feel like Bob Iger is in touch this time around?
I don't think he can be more out of touch. Sorry, I'll let Katrina talk, but I don't think he can be more out of touch than Chapek.
I mean, I agree with you on that one. I don't think he's that out of touch like Chapek was, but Chapek was just this awkward human being that just, I feel like he tried to be one-on-one with people, but then just couldn't be one-on-one with people. And then Iger comes in and he has that charisma, that he's like a people pleaser. He knows body language. He's able to kind of steer things away, and he does a good jig away from the bad subject, right? He just
I like that. I love
and
that
runs
idea.
away. Was it whatever Simpson? That's what I'm thinking of.
Homer Simpson going
No,
in the...
Jessica Simpson's sister. Ashley Simpson, when she's on Saturday Night Live and she's doing a jig away.
Not the animated Simpsons.
No, yeah.
The real Simpsons.
But he's good at that. That's what he's and that's why DeMauro is kind of his little protege, because DeMauro also has that charisma that kind of helps steer the crowd. And then here's Chapek, and he's like,
right. Yeah,
and then
charisma and warmth. You're right that Chapek never really had, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then he wears those great sweaters. You wear a great sweater. You
Thank
have
you.
that charisma.
All
It's
about
just you're a people
It takes a
person.
lot
You're
of work
one
to
with
wear
the
a
people,
cardigan.
right? Yeah.
Cardigans are a tough outfit to wear.
They
Pulls
are.
It off.
And he
Iger
pulls that
DeMauro. They also-
3/4 zip.
Yeah,
Very
Iger
nice.
And DeMauro, they always seem to be matching.
They do tend to match a lot. I've
Yeah.
noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
They wear a
Maybe
lot of
it's
sweaters.
They do.
They really do.
They have a softer approach
It's that Ralph Lauren or something.
Yeah.
They just have like that like sweater weather type of attitude. But anyway, but I think I mean, again, like what he did with the strikes really put a sour taste in my mouth because that also hurt my job. So, but like him trying, I mean, I get it. Like he's a money man. That's his job, is to do money. So obviously he wants to try to figure out the best way possible to make the cash. And for him to try to hurt the actors and try to do this AI BS stuff is just, it's just sad. Like, it just makes me feel like, you know, his bottom line is money. He doesn't care about the actors. He doesn't care about making good films, because I feel like right now they're trying to push more live action movies than you don't need to touch those. Just leave the cartoons where they are. You don't need to like think outside of the box and make something new. That's what I feel. But then, you know, I feel like he has done some decent stuff. Like, I agree with Mitchell. He did some good stuff. He's not doing, you know, anything great right now. I feel like right now he like pretty much like acts like Disney Plus. Like Chapek was in love with Disney Plus, and he was just like, oh my god, I'm obsessed with you. I need to make this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And then, oh my gosh, guess what? We're not making any money. And then now they're like, okay, well, let's just jack up the prices and start charging more for putting ads in there. And then also start, you know, maybe cutting back on these like original films and like original movie or like, you know, shows and stuff. And so like Iger did away with that stuff, and which I'm kind of happy about, because they were like polluting Disney Plus. And then when they put Dancing with the Stars on Disney Plus, I laughed so hard. I was like, that is going to fail so hard.
You
and
said
guess
it
what?
here, I believe.
Yeah.
You were committed to that idea. That's not going to work.
It's not going to happen. And guess what? No one watched it. And then now they like put it back on ABC because they're like, oh my god, it has to be live, because no one's going to watch like live on Disney Plus.
It seems to be the only saving grace for, you know, traditional legacy media is live now. I think I've said this before, but they're running out of options. Legacy media is to keep people paying attention to them. It seems to work, the live concept still, whereas streaming, not so much, because when I'm going streaming, I want to see something on demand.
I watch it the next day. Like, I don't want to
Right.
watch stuff live because I know it's just going to be there for me later.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder. You know, you reference a lot of the polluting of Disney Plus, as you put it, and what's I think fascinating is that final year that Iger spent at the helm as executive chairman. Remember, he took over as head of creative for that final year. I don't know if you recall that, but he wanted to help guide things creatively. So I feel like a lot of these projects that he helped put into action, he also just took away because they were costing an arm and a leg. So no doubt he was helping to steer that category too. If you were to give him a letter grade, what would you give him?
I'd give him a C.
You give him a C.
He's not going above and beyond what I thought he would be doing. You know what I mean? I mean, it's hard to steer like a whole company within a year. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, that's a very important point that people will need to understand.
like, you still have like stuff that's going through the bottleneck and the timeline that was already created that Chapek started. Like, Iger left, Chapek was trying to ruin, and then he ruined it, and then Iger comes back and is trying to steer it back. But also you have to go through like everybody. It's like a chain, and then at that point everybody like shoots it down, or it changes, money goes somewhere, and then it just takes a long time to steer that to where you want it to be. So I mean, maybe next year he'll do better and name Tyler as future CEO. Who knows?
Yeah, Tyler.
It's already happened. I mean, it's
It's
already.
all a lesson for you. You need to pay attention to what your, I guess, grandfather or godfather is doing. Learn from them, like Luke learned from Yoda, and not have a whole Kylo Ren experience going on. 'Cause,
Godfather.
Yeah, the Godfather.
Yeah, I was trying to think of who that.
No horses' heads in
who
bed.
that is.
That's not okay here.
No, I will not be murdering. Don't worry.
Well,
We don't condone that on
There's
the Kingdom
still
Report.
No.
I don't.
We
I
don't do
think
that.
anyone condones that. But
No,
yeah,
find
we
a
can-
horse
we can
head in your
condone
bed. We don't want that either.
no,
Yeah.
I don't want
Thank
that.
Well, oddly enough,
Unless it's the Modern Family version.
That's like Universal or something. It's happening.
right. Yes, either of those. Somebody does agree with you, Katrina. A viewer by the name of Lil Buggers,
Little buggers.
ended up sharing this, saying, I think he's working on it. It's not going to change in 1 year. Typically, when damage is done, it takes longer to undo the damage than it did to cause the damage. I think he's trying. but he is tired and not giving it his all. He has been doing all right, but not great. I don't feel like his heart is in it like it once was. That's an interesting take, that his heart might not be in it this time. I feel like he returned because his heart was with the company still.
Or
and
was
he
his
wanted to stay.
savings starting to plummet after he retired? He's like, oh no, I got to start working again.
Right, everything I did. Right.
Not only just the company, but I fully believe straight up that he wants to humiliate Bob Chapek.
Oh yeah, that was
Like, I think he wants to make him look like he was
A fool.
A fool. Like, yeah, I really do.
Yeah.
And not like he's like got this like, oh, I just want to ruin that guy's career. But I think he just wants to be like, yeah, I want to show that this guy was a disaster. And
He's not Jordan coming out of retirement, that first time, and I'm going to go get more rings. He's just like, I'm just going to rain on his parade a little bit, show what I can do in 2 years. And already, be in that retired mindset.
But then why choose him as a successor? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
That's like that's the loop that I can't get my little noodle around here. Is
it's all about building up the story. You can't just come out. Got to build it up slowly so that way it's even more epic.
Tyler's little noodle is struggling here.
I'm trying to bake my noodle over here, but it's just not going well. My sauce be broke.
Is it a macaroni? I don't think
it's too much trouble. Well, we have another viewer who has a very unique perspective on all of this, and I think that they're worth sharing as well. Mike3889 says, what if I were to tell you all a lot of the issues Iger is dealing with is the result of his poor decision making at the mid to latter end of his first tenure? Iger jumped ship and used Chapek as a scapegoat. Chapek just hit the fast forward button for all of what was on the horizon to unfold. Anyone who thinks this is purely Chapek's fault is a fool.
Wow, Mike.
Well, Chapek shouldn't have hit the fast forward button. Everyone knows you can do that. You can skip a little bit, but you can't hit fast forward. You can do the 10-second skip, not the fast forward.
Don't hold the button. Just tap the button.
Don't hold the button.
When you hold the button, it fast forwards too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what tomorrow does.
Right.
I actually agree with Mike, though. I mean, it's not like I was saying earlier. It's like none of this is one man's decision. This is not one man's company, and like we even just discussed right before that, right before we read his comment that. He put Chapek in charge to begin with, so that right there is a mistake that was made. I think what it boils down to is that, he was kind of a little bit of a scapegoat. Let's be real. We all liked to joke about it and give him a hard time, and I think that became kind of a running joke, and honestly, probably kind of mean. When you think about the fact that he's a real human being, but we were kind of. I think we just liked to have that joke, and I think a lot of people felt that way, and I think that's why that ran. And then listen, at the end of the day, and I think everybody kind of agrees, unfortunately, he just wasn't the most personable guy, and that rubbed people the wrong way. And I think that's why he got as much crap as he did.
You should have talked to Julie Andrews, had princess lessons.
She would have done them.
Yeah, there you go. That would have fixed it.
She is the queen.
That's
right.
She is.
Yeah, I know a long car ride home one time, Tyler, we were all talking about the CNBC story that had come out and that I had read through about how all of this came about, how Bob Iger's return had come about, and how so much of his return was based in secrecy around ousting Bob Chapek. And I believe I even said, while we were in that car ride, I lost respect for Bob Iger in this process, learning about all of this, because Bob was a part of pulling the rug out from under Chapek almost the entire time.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that really bothered me, because Iger is seen as such a pillar of integrity in the business community, and he teaches these master classes that Garrett speaks of. He wrote this profound book about leadership, and yet here he was on the back end, never fully giving Bob Chapek the amount of rope that he needed to do the job the right way the first time. Now, don't get me wrong. Bob Chapek was the wrong person to put in charge in the first place. He didn't get Disney, period. Even though he had been there for over a decade, that doesn't mean your top lieutenant is always the best choice. Sometimes they don't get it. Sometimes they don't connect the right way. Bob Chapek never connected the right way. And he was given this opportunity where not only was he set up to fail because he wasn't the right personality fit for a company that has always had a very personality-driven leader. Michael Eisner, for example, somebody who was in front of every Disney Sunday night movie. Bob Iger, who is a soft-spoken but in front of every sort of situation that Disney has, every sort of new opening, every sort of charismatic need. He is there. He fills that void. Then you see poor Bob Chapek come in, who doesn't seem to have any social skills throughout any of his life, trying to piece together how this is going to work. And then on top of it is being undermined on the back end, not just by Iger loyalists who were still in the company, but by Iger himself on the outside.
I mean, they didn't even give him an office. They didn't even give him Iger's office. Iger had that, and he was gone.
Right.
Like,
oh, wow. That's
how would you feel if you were like, you're the new king, but you can't sit on that throne.
Yeah, not
You gotta go
really.
sit on the toilet throne because
Not
that's all
really.
you get. And it's like, how are you supposed to live up to that when you're like, you don't even get to take the reins fully when you always get undermined by Iger, pretty much.
Yeah, blew
Sad.
my mind reading through that and really understanding that Chapek never got the full capacity to drive. Yeah, he never got the full license to drive.
It was Autopia for him. He
Yeah,
thought
it was. He
gonna
got his
go.
fake license.
It
and
was
his,
not. It was an Autopia experience. You think you're giving him the keys, but no. You're
And then
on
Iger
track.
was in the back bumping him the whole time as you.
Get out of the way, Squirt.
Yeah.
Come on, Junior.
I'm following you.
Yeah, it's a fascinating tale, and again, very Shakespearean. The Walt Disney Company always seems to have been in its history. You especially look at the whole Eisner era. Great documentary, by the way. Might suggest you check that out over at the Kane Report on YouTube. But the Eisner era, really great concept in the Shakespearean atmosphere that has been the Walt Disney Company for a very long time. Bob Iger rather, playing into that original Shakespearean experience back when Eisner was in control, and now doing some of his own bidding is Iger on this end with Chapek. So at any rate, who is the next Disney CEO? Certainly it seems as
Eisner.
though we are 80 plus. Certainly it seems that we are going the direction of a Josh Tomorrow. It seems more and more like he is the front runner based purely on how much this guy is getting press time with everybody. It seems like he is being put front and center with every different media group on purpose. Who knows? I mean, that could always change. But
Traveling the world with Iger. You know.
With
He's
all their
always there with
sweaters. Like, do they have their own suitcases for all their sweaters?
They hold hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like shows about like the blue sky ideas. Like, I'm like, oh my God, can you stop with the blue sky ideas? But that's like
Stop teasing.
who he wants to be, like the imagination guy, right? To
Right.
be like the hype man. And then Iger's the one to axe it half of the time because they're like, oh yeah, too much money. No. What are you talking about? We never said anything like that before.
I wonder if they are trying to. I wonder if they are like, everybody thought of Chapek as like this just devoid of all creativity type guy, and so they're like, let's get Josh out here saying, that he has all these great ideas, and then people would be like, oh, he's creative, and like, I wonder if they're playing this whole
Future
PR
Walt
game
Disney
with,
right here.
with all of us right now, and they're all just sitting there, just
Excellent.
Fools.
excellent. Look at these idiots. And then Chapek is also in the office. He's like, he's been acting the whole time. He's like, man, you
What a
guys.
story.
He's best friends with Iger.
The best role he's ever played.
Yeah, he's an amazing actor. It's been crazy. This has been a whirlwind. Wow.
Well, you really understand the backstory there, I think, Tyler. And we
you.
want to know from all of you, if you were to grade Bob Iger's first year back, what would it be? Let us know in the comments.